Good evening, everybody. I'm Emily Rose Jacobson, and I'm here with Steele Davis, aka Mr. Steele of Rotor Riot, to ask a few questions. Steele, how are you doing?
Great, how are you?
Great. A nice day here. Where are you? Are you in California as well?
I'm not. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Atlanta. It is 9:10 p.m. right now. It's pretty dark.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
So, to start off, how did you get into drone racing?
Um, I got a toy helicopter for Christmas in 2013, like that Christmas. So on the cusp of 2014, and it just kind of got me into RC. And then after trying to scour the internet for more knowledge about RC, I stumbled across a couple like YouTube channels. Like one was Flight Test, and the other was Team Black Sheep. And these channels kind of were up and like Team Black Sheep's been doing FPV for a long time, and they're kind of the pioneers in like long range FPV. And I really like wanted to do that, like fly really far away remotely. That sounded cool to me. And as I was researching, trying to get more knowledge about that, mini multirotors had just kind of broken into the market when this was like April or May 2014 when the Blackout Mini H Quad had come out, which you don't know what that is, but maybe some people in the audience do. And it was kind of like the first Mini H Quad that fit full size electronics. And yeah, I mean, I just happened to get one right when Flight Test had announced it, and then it was out of stock forever after that. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into mini multirotors. And then obviously the racing thing is just kind of a, I guess, white-blooded American boys like to race things. So
Oh.
yeah,
So, 3 years about, right?
two,
Two. Okay.
yeah, 2014 May, 2016 May.
So, what is your regular job on the side besides drone racing?
Oh, I've done a bunch of things. I was an REI outdoor school instructor. I taught rock climbing, kayaking, camping, all that kind of stuff every weekend for about 8 months. And then
Oh, wow.
I was a DJI technician, which is the white Phantom drone that anybody that's ever heard the word drone has seen a Phantom or inadvertently seen a Phantom and not known what they were looking at. And yeah, I fixed those for 14 months. So from like, I don't know, June until like August of 2015, this last year. And then I left that to pursue contract work for GoPro and Red Bull and just companies that I go and film their athletes. I'm not really as a star, but I am using my aircraft to film their stars, and then they use the footage to promote their athletes. So
Definitely, that's awesome. Yeah, being able to do what you love and be paid for it, I think it's everyone's dream.
yeah.
So, how did you hook up with Rotor Riot?
So I went to Hawaii. There was this trip called FPV Paradise, which essentially was a trip designed as a scouting event for the Drone Worlds, which is coming up this year in October.
Oh, wow.
And the guy that put that on invited the best pilots or the most well-known pilots from all over the world. So there was like multiple guys from Australia, there was multiple guys from the UK, there was multiple guys from the United States, Europe, Denmark, whatever. Everybody came out to Hawaii and met up on Honolulu,
Oh my
and
gosh.
we kind of took private chartered jets and helicopters to all these remote locations and flew. And in all reality, it was to promote the drone worlds, like to go get really epic footage. And then also, like the side note, like the B plan was to look for a spot to possibly hold the world drone racing competition. And while we were there, Chad Capper, which is the founder of Flight Test, and he's also the like boss at Rotor Riot. He's the head dude. Him and I kind of hit it off. Chad Nowak and him kind of hit it off, and I had mentioned to him he should do another show because he had obviously just recently stopped doing Flight Test, which was the channel I talked about earlier, which was kind of a big influencer to me. So meeting Chad Capper was like I don't know, it was kind of like meeting a celebrity for me. I was like, I don't really know how to take this guy because I respect him a lot, and I don't know if he's a dick or
No,
like what. I didn't expect him to be, but you never know with
yeah, you never know.
So after a week of hanging out with him and really kind of I mean, you're sleeping in the same house every night, so you end up talking and just getting to know each other better. We exchanged numbers, and then a couple weeks later, I think someone's washing their hands upstairs. Sorry. A couple what?
Oh, it's fine.
A couple weeks later, I called him because we had talked about doing a show. He's like, "Yeah, I've been really wanting to do a show with multi-rotors, but I haven't really found the right people yet, and I've been looking for a while." And I was like, "I want to do something with you. Let's do something." So he asked me who I think should be involved, and obviously I said Chad, Carlos, and Tommy, and I was pretty adamant about those four or those three, including myself, and then it kind of just spawned from there. So that's how Rotor Riot was conceived, I guess. It was just a brainchild of Chad Capper and then me pushing him to kind of get it going. And then, yeah, now it's where it is today.
That's awesome. What a really cool story, a beginner's story. So, do you all live close together, or are you all kind of separated across the U.S.?
Chad Nowak, which is Australian. He's from Brisbane, Australia, which is about 4 miles away from my house here in Atlanta. And there's a Sharpoo, which is actually from Madrid. So, but he lives in LA, and he lives in, I don't know, like Burbank area. He works at DreamWorks as a head of animation at
Oh,
Dream.
awesome.
And then Tommy Tabahia is Oh My God online, as that's his screen name. He works in LA as well. So we have kind of a centralized thing, two guys in LA, and then Chad and I are pretty much spread apart, but Chad mainly stays on the East Coast, either in Ohio with Chad Capper, so there's two Chads in one house, or he stays with me in Atlanta. So, and when we try to get together, we try to cater to the LA guys because they have full-time jobs still and have families to feed, where Chad and I are both single in a sense that we're not married and have children. So it's like we don't have as many obligations or as many responsibilities, I guess. And both of us have given up jobs to pursue a professional multi-rotor career, or whatever you want to call it. Professional as in like flying, or professional as in being a spokesman or promoter of products. It's kind of like you have to do all these things to really make it work. You can't just go fly and be well known. You have to be good at social media. You have to be good at flying. You have to be good at promoting yourself. You have to be good at talking to people and making connections. So there's a lot of things that go into to doing what we do, and especially to make it a profession. And we don't make a lot of money, but we do exactly what we love to do, and it's fun. So
That's the best, man. Props for that, because not a lot of people can say they get to do what they love. So, congrats.
yeah, thank you.
We have a question from the chat that is, do you ever think that drone racing will become a professional spectator sport? And I guess a follow-up to that is, what are the qualifications for it becoming a spectator sport?
Qualifications for it becoming a spectator sport.
Like, what would it take?
Um, I think it's going to take a lot of things. I think HD downlink will be one major thing. So to be able to watch the video feed that the pilot is seeing in high definition is something that's not possible right now. So that is going to be a big factor because, I mean, well, I don't necessarily think it's a big factor, but I think the people that are trying to make this a thing think that's a big factor. I guess just from watching any other sport, you can watch it on the big screen in high definition and they zoom in on people like picking their nose while they're playing golf or what's. So I'm assuming they want to zoom in on pilots filming other pilots at 70 miles an hour picking their nose, but I'm not 100% sure why they want HD. But you know, it would be good to be able to watch what the pilots are seeing in high definition. So that's one of the main downsides to why we can't do it now, and why it's going to be something that happens sooner than later. But it'll definitely happen later, obviously, because the technology isn't there. And then also, I think the battery technology has kind of hit a plateau. So you're not going to be able to carry so many things for so long. So like right now, the aircraft that Chad and the guys on Rotor Riot and I fly, like typically fly for between 2 and 3 minutes, maybe 4 if you're really kind of easy on it. So
Wow.
that's not a lot of time to a lot. Like if you tell that to an average person, if you tell someone it flies for 20 minutes, they're going to be like, oh, that's terrible. That's terrible flight time. So like when people like I just let my girlfriend fly I have a Phantom. I let her fly it in a field out there like at this park a little while ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in the air for like 18 or 20 minutes, and the battery was at like 30%. And
Oh,
she's
wow.
the battery gets drained so fast, and then I go fly for a minute and a half, and she doesn't say anything. So it's all perspective, like what you, I guess, to the Phantom person, 20 minutes is not a long time. And then if you look at a racing quad, you're getting a lot of performance packed into a small package, but
Mm-hmm.
you're sacrificing your flight time because you can't carry a huge battery because it adds weight, takes away from the performance of the aircraft. So, yeah, there's a lot of loopholes right now that you have to jump through to be able to do what we do, but at the same time, you can't do some things. Like you can't fly for a 30-minute race. You can't fly 10 miles away on some like extravagant safari race or something. It has to be pretty close proximity as well. So it just the reality of making this a spectator sport is completely doable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so new, and there's so many people that have money that have no idea what they're doing, that are just throwing money at it. Like it could ruin it because you got so many people throwing money at it, and it doesn't ever does anything because you see people, oh, I spent $20 million last year trying to make drone racing work and it didn't do anything, so it's not
Oh,
possible.
wow.
But in reality, it is possible. You're just stupid and you threw money at something you didn't understand. So
Yeah, I can see. You just need to figure out the logistics and have someone who's really dedicated and knows the sport
yeah,
to make it a big deal.
yeah.
All right, we have Zorbit, and they want to know: do you practice on simulators?
So I actually don't practice on simulators. I originally, when I started flying, I was flying collective pitch helicopters. So, which for those of you that don't know what that is, it's essentially like a full-sized single rotor helicopter, but scaled down to a mini-sized helicopter, and it's kind of unreal how they defy physics. I mean, you can like tick-tock back and forth is what they call the trick. Um, and Chad's filming me over here, and I have something just punching the side of my throat, and it's making me cry. But anyways, so like collective pitch helicopters are one of the hardest things to learn how to fly because it has so many dynamics, and you have to learn orientation, and it's very difficult to tell orientation because of the single disc can be disorienting if you're looking at it from far away. Um, so it's really expensive to crash. Each crash would be between $50 and $300. So,
Wow.
and that's anytime you touch the ground. So if you make a mistake and you're not really high in the air, which it's hard to see when it's far away, so you want to be close. So if you make a mistake, it's $50 to $300. Where flying a drone, typically you break like maybe $3 in props, and you can
Yeah.
hit like a brick wall at 50 miles an hour. You may break like $30 in parts or something like that. So it's a lot different flying with a multi-rotor than it is flying anything else. So fixed wing stuff I learned on simulators, and I got the gist of flying. I got the gist of orientation, and I think that's a good way to start flying on simulators. Flying fixed wing like planes, and then flying helicopters or something like that. That's a good thing to learn in the beginning. But now that I've graduated to flying a lot and getting a lot of experience actually flying, I hardly ever touch a simulator anymore.
Oh,
And
wow.
the reason that is because the simulators for FPV are like 70% of how the real thing feels. And when you go out and fly, like today, I flew maybe 3 packs. I don't get that many. I don't get to fly that long now because I'm doing so many other things. Like I have little projects that I'll do. I'll build something fun. Like I've been flying these planes behind me. You see,
Mm-hmm.
that's like my new passion is flying 3D foam planes for some reason. I still fly multi-rotors. I still fly FPV whenever I can. Main priority right now. But when I go out and fly, if you have an aircraft that's very, I guess, consistent, and what you want is consistency. You want consistency with everything. I mean, if you could go to a basketball goal and stand on the 3-point line and be consistent, obviously you're going to get the 3-pointer every single time. So it's the same thing with RC. If the aircraft is doing exactly what you think it's going to do when you put an input in, and obviously it takes a while to get to that point because obviously if you're flying and all of a sudden you dumb thumb it and turn left when you were supposed to turn right, that's your fault. But if you're flying and all of a sudden the wind bumps you and you jump up like that and that causes you to freak out, then that was an external force that caused you to react in a way. So, like, say you were flying in a perfect world where there was no wind and everything worked exactly how it was supposed to work, it would be easier to fly something in that than it would be, say, with a 30-mile-an-hour wind or something like that, and then maybe one of your servos isn't centered and the plane is turning or something like that. So
Yeah.
you want everything to be as consistent as possible. And for the last about 8 months, I've been flying essentially the same aircraft. So every time I pick it up, it's the same as what I remember it as the last time. So I never have to relearn anything. And that's a big issue with guys that are flying nowadays. They see all these new products and they're like, oh my God, this new motor came out, this new prop came out, this new transmitter came out, this new camera came out, and they go buy all this stuff, and then they put it on their quad, and then they have problems, or they crash their quad and they have a problem, and it's like a ghost problem. It comes and then it goes, and it comes and it goes. So if you don't have something consistent, you're always relearning, and you're always trying to keep up with how something's flying differently one day, and then it flies completely differently the next day. So
Definitely.
you get it consistent, and then you don't have to practice anymore. You just go out and it's like a video game to you because you know exactly how it's going to perform.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you so much. We have another question from our chat. Atlanta FPV asks, what was your first quad?
I have it on the shelf. Hold on, I'll show you. Oh God, hold on. I clicked something when I. This is my first, or actually, this is my first mini quad. It should have been, I guess, specific. This is a blackout mini H quad that got run over by a trophy truck.
Oh no.
A GoPro shoot. I was flying in like Crandon, Wisconsin, or what? Somewhere out in the Midwest somewhere, and yeah, someone had turned some kind of large transmitter on for like a TV truck, and it knocked me out of the sky, and I fell onto the track. And then the race literally started as soon as the quad hit the track, and it just got run over. But this was the first mini quad that I had, and this got hit by a truck at about 130 miles an hour, and
Oh my gosh.
it's still pretty good. Like these motors are good, the ESCs are good. A lot of the parts were still pretty good, so you can tell how durable these things are. I mean, it's made of carbon fiber, and the printed circuit board is made of I guess not plexiglass. No, yeah, I can't remember. Fiberglass, and yeah, I mean it's durable. But to answer his question and not get too long-winded, my very first the TBS Discovery Pro, which is not acrobatic quad. It's more of a gimbal platform, so similar to a Phantom, but it's designed for like long-range flight. So you would essentially, Team Black Sheep is the people that make this, and you put a GoPro on it, and it has the capability to fly for about 15 to 18 minutes, and Team Black Sheep's known for flying like 3 miles out and then like circling the Jesus thing in Brazil from like 3 or 4 miles away. I don't know, just a bunch of really cool long range stuff, and that sounds awesome until you actually try it. And then when the quad's like a mile away, and if it goes down, you have no idea where it's going to be, and it's just you're relying on the technical, like your building skill and then the aircraft's electronic components, and it's just like kind of scary. So I prefer to stay close now so that I don't just thousands of dollars if it just happens to go down for some random reason.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Is your first quad do you keep it around very sentimentally?
So I had a Discovery Pro. That was my very first quad, and I was this sweet story actually. I was flying, so I worked at REI. I was an outdoor school instructor. I was teaching a geocaching class, and it was like I think the class started at 6 p.m. and I was there at 4 p.m. to run to all the geocaches to make sure there weren't any like weird things in the geocaches, because I don't want to say what was in there, but a plate of some sort was in one day, and it was not something that kids wanted to see.
Uh-oh, yeah.
Anyways, so I checked all of these things, and then I got done early, and I had about an hour, so I was like, oh, well, I'll fly some. This was at Panola Mountain, which is like, I don't know, southeastern Atlanta, maybe East Atlanta, and took it up, flew around for about 10 minutes, and then the battery was fine, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden it just started slowly dropping, and I had no control.
Oh
at all. Like
gosh.
it didn't just fall; it just like kind of feathered its way down. I had no control at all, and it went down into a 3 acre briar patch right next to the lake. And
Wow.
I had shorts on and a t-shirt on, and it was about 90 degrees. And I went over there and started running through this briar patch trying to find it. Never found it that night. Came back the next day. Came back the next 4 days, and with 6 people. And you can't weed through briar patch. So we had to make a rake with like a big 2x4. That's like it was probably 2x4x8
Oh
on a
wow.
end of a big hoe, I guess you would. And you're like standing on it, pushing down briars that are like up to your neck. I don't know if that's a southern term, a briar, like a prickly thing. You know what I'm talking about?
No, yeah, I'm from Texas, so I totally also get the whole imagery of 90 degrees summer humidity as well.
And I'm wearing a long sleeve flannel and like Dickies because you're trying to not get smoked by briars and there's ticks everywhere. And my
Oh
hair was longer
gosh.
than it is. I looked extra farmer status that day. Um, but yeah, so I lost that. I was like 20. I had bought a GoPro 3 days before that because I'd been holding out because I didn't want to buy a GoPro because the 4 was going to come out. And I bought a GoPro 3 Plus on a whim. Took it out the next day, lost it. It was about $2,300, I want to say,
Oh my
that I
gosh.
just completely lost. And after that, I bought another one, played with it for about 3 months, and then sold it. And I haven't gone back to that. I've just done the mini quad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, so tell us about the first time you flew a drone.
Okay, so the very first time ever, other than so it was that aircraft. Are you talking about racing quad, or are you talking about that Discovery Pro?
Your choice.
Okay, I think my Discovery Pro story is better.
Okay.
Very first time, I obviously took it out in the front yard after I finished building it. It took me 2.5 weeks to finish building it because I wanted to do it right. I had all the parts, and that's kind of agonizing when you have everything and you know what it's going to do when it's done, but you don't know how to build it. You don't know how to get to the end. So you're like at 30%, but you have no idea how to meander your way to the 100% mark. And so I finally got it done about 2.5 weeks later, took it out in the front yard, hovered it, and then the next day I was going to Florida for a week. We go to Destin every year with
Mm-hmm.
my family, and I took that with me, and I launched. This was the first flight. It was the evening that we got there. I launched out of my hand on the third story building of our. We have a house down there, a third story of our house, and set up my patch antenna. And I was running 1.3 video, which is for long range stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I went 1.5 miles down the beach with a Mobius and no gimbal or anything. And like you probably won't know what this is, but a Mobius is just like a little HD camera that's a piece of crap.
No.
Um, it essentially looks like a raisin box, and you stick it on shit, and it kind of gets you really half-ass footage. And yeah, so I freaking flew down the beach 2 mile, like about 1.5 miles away. That was the very first flight. I didn't even make sure it would return to home. I didn't take any precautions at all.
Oh
It
wow.
was very ridiculous, but I mean, I felt confident when I did it. I was running UHF, which is ultra high frequency, which is a lower frequency, allows you to go a little bit farther for radio control. And I mean, yeah, nothing happened. I flew it the whole week, had no problems at all. And then obviously a couple months later, I ended up losing it. But yeah, I mean, other than a random technical failure, there's not much that can go wrong if you do a proper build and you understand the technology.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Where is the craziest place you've flown?
That is a hard one.
Personally, I love your grocery store racing video. I think it's hilarious and amazing. And I wish I could race drones in a grocery store myself.
Hold on a second. I got mustache going in my face. So, craziest place I've ever flown. I mean, I've flown so many weird places that it's. I'm trying to think of the most fun I've ever had. And I think the best place I've flown is the base of a waterfall in Hawaii that we had to take a private helicopter to get to.
Oh, wow.
And then we dove this 1,800-foot waterfall. And we were going to like about 2,200 feet, so about 400 feet or so above the waterfall, and then just diving down for 400 feet and then following the contour of the waterfall, which was essentially vertical. It was probably at like, I don't know, kicked back maybe at 120 degrees or something. It wasn't super vertical, but it was definitely vertical enough for water to be like bouncing off of it and falling down. So that was the coolest thing ever for me. And essentially, the only reason it was the most fun and the most, I guess, epic you could consider it was because of the people that I was with. And I mean, that would have changed. Like my second best would probably be somewhere here in Atlanta,
Hmm.
just because I was with certain people that made it fun. So I mean, it's cool. Like some of the cool locations, like we dive buildings down here in Atlanta all the time, and it might not be the most appealing places to fly because if you crash, you are going to kill a quad or lose it entirely. So it's semi nerve wracking, but at the same time, the reward is you get really good footage. You had fun doing it. It was a technological achievement, and also it kind of pumped your adrenaline a little bit. I mean, everybody that flies these things is somewhat of an adrenaline junkie. So yeah, if you're not doing it on a skateboard, which I did for 12 years, or in a car or something like that, then you're doing it with a some kind of remote aircraft now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
All right, we got another question from our chat. Sneaky Pimp
Yeah.
asks, Sneaky Pimp, how do you guys draw the line with your own stunts in terms of safety?
What?
So,
Draw.
draw like what is the boundary line of where you experiment stunt wise, but stay back, maybe not try it because of safety reasons.
Safety for the quad or for us?
Safety for everyone, or,
Okay,
and
so
bystanders.
there are multiple ways to answer this, and I'll try to answer it all in one go. So I think maybe what he's trying to say, or the sneaky pimp is trying to say, I don't know if it's he or she, um, possibly is maybe how we learn new tricks without jeopardizing the aircraft. Because some of the stuff we do is like really disorienting, and then you come out in a weird angle and you have no idea where you are, and you have to kind of assess the situation really quickly and then immediately fix it before hitting the ground. And a lot of that stuff is you end up just going up high and trying something new, and then figuring out the muscle memory to get it to come back and make sure that you can understand the orientation. And if you can't understand the orientation, then figure out how to correct it quickly. So the best thing that I can say for this, and the best thing that helped me, is to literally just go out and just do something ridiculous with the sticks so that you have no idea what the outcome is,
Hmm.
and then stop as quickly as possible, and then as quickly as possible correct what the problem is. So you're essentially you're correcting, as you're teaching yourself to correct for any kind of oops as quickly as possible. So you might be like flying at 60 miles an hour and maybe a wind gust pops your left side up or something. And since you've trained yourself to overcome little weird nuances that happen or anomalies that happen in nature that cause your aircraft to do something weird, like maybe the other day, like I was flying in my front yard and I popped up about I don't know 100 feet and flipped upside down and was flying, but there was like a 40-mile-an-hour wind or something at 100 feet, and there wasn't down low. And I actually flew back about 100 yards and ended up landing in a ridiculous, I don't know, it was like 60-foot tree, and I had to climb up there and get it. But
Oh gosh.
that stuff is, you just understand when you come out of something, you learn how to correct if something's wrong, or you learn how to correct in the way that you want it to go. And that's how you do like new tricks and stuff. And now, as far as the safety for, maybe he's talking about like diving buildings and stuff, and how we make it safe in a sense that it's not going to endanger anyone.
Hmm.
And you're dealing with an aircraft that weighs less than 600 grams, so that's a little over a pound. Yeah, I mean, if you drop a dumbbell that weighs a pound off of a 30-story building and it hits somebody, that's going to do some damage. But the likelihood of being able to hit somebody, or flying in a populated area, so we don't fly in areas where there are a lot of people. I mean, all the judgment is taken into consideration, and it's all just personal judgment. You don't go out and have a guideline book that you review before you go fly. You just kind of say, I consider this safe. And I've never had any accidents as far as like I don't know, people getting hit or anything like that. It's very rare. It's similar to like a head-on collision with two jetliners. It's never happened, I don't think. And if it has, it's probably happened once. It's just very unlikely. I mean, you're looking at something that's less than the size of a soccer ball, traveling at 80 miles an hour in free space. How likely is it going to hit another moving object, or potentially a person? And that comes back to me when you go back and you do a weird trick and you come out and maybe you're in a weird angle and you don't know how to correct for it. Well, you're training yourself to correct for it quickly. So if you come out at a weird angle and maybe there's a dude there or something, then you can correct in the correct orientation and crash away from him or miss him or something like that. So that's why I like to train the twitch muscles in your fingers. So essentially, when you see something and it's wrong, you can fix it as fast as possible, and hopefully come out unscathed, or at least come out with like little damage, little as damage possible.
Yeah, Sneaky Pimp has asked another question. How do you deal with liability in public safety?
Liability, and is this guy from the FAA or what?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think the FAA has an alias, Sneaky Pimp. Um,
Sneaking in
so,
chats.
so what was the question? It was called something about liability, when I fly.
Yeah, just more along the lines of liability and just public safety in general.
I mean, I'm flying a toy around. I don't consider it. Oh, I mean, it's just like driving. Do you drive drunk? Do you swerve in lanes without looking? I mean, it's just judgment. It's just natural. I guess comes down to your judgment, and I just use my judgment. There's no real science to it. You just go to a spot. If there are 100 people standing next to the waterfall or next to the fountain that you want to fly next to, then it's probably not a good idea to fly there. If you're flying in an abandoned building and there's nobody around, but maybe the property manager would get mad,
Hmm.
who cares? I'm a kid. I'm gonna go trespass. That's what people do. Um, if you have fun in life, then you're taking a little bit of risk. So, yeah, I mean, it's no more dangerous than kids throwing a frisbee in a park. Like you don't think that some guy's frisbee is gonna chop your head off. So, I have more control than a frisbee. I'll let you know. Tell you that right now.
I was gonna ask about your abandoned buildings videos. Do you get permission from the landowner, or do you have to get any permission of any kind, or do you just find abandoned complexes that you go to do your racing and videos in?
I think I've asked permission maybe once. Um, Typically, you just do it and then ask for forgiveness later. So
I like that.
there's really no reason to go. I mean, so I don't know. Say there were like someone was walking around, walking your neighborhood, and their dog like had to go to the bathroom, and they happened to do it in your front yard. If they had come up and asked you if their dog could go to the bathroom in your front yard, you would have said no, obviously, unless you're just amazing and love dogs and your grass needs to be fertilized. But yeah, I mean, as long as they do it, they acknowledge that they messed up and they apologize for it or something like that, then there's no harm, no foul. Especially flying in an abandoned building. I mean, what is going to happen other than you crash your aircraft and maybe break a GoPro? Now, I've been some places where it is kind of a liability for like us walking around. Like I've been in
Hmm.
some pretty sketchy buildings where you're like walking through and there's like roofs falling in and crap like that. So
Oh wow.
I mean, that's a little bit sketchy, and I try to stay away from stuff like that. But I mean, if you fall 30 stories in an abandoned building, I don't know. I mean, I guess everyone's just psyched up on suing everything. So forget about the psyched up on suing portion of America and just go out and have fun.
Awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, we have another question. UX guy FPV asks, "Is there a pilot you look up to, or a pilot that has surprised you in the past 2 years?"
As far as a pilot I look up to, I mean, I obviously look up to Tommy and Chad and Charpu. a lot. I mean, they're my peers. They're the people that I kind of grew up in this industry watching and trying to imitate or to outdo, I guess. I mean, when I got into the Sharpoo was already massive, so obviously I had animosity towards him because he was getting fame and popularity from just being really good at flying. So I tried my hardest and kept trying and trying and trying and trying to either outdo him or do something different than him. So yeah, I mean, people like that, even though I didn't like them in the beginning, it was a didn't like because they were better than me, essentially. But other than that, as far as people that have surprised me, yeah, I mean, there's a couple pilots that have come out of the woodwork. A lot of them are local guys. I would say the biggest one that has surprised me that isn't local here
Mm-hmm.
is probably a kid named Ethan Gulnak, which is from Hawaii. I met him on that trip. He's like 15 years old or 14 even. He's something like super, can't even drive yet, and his style is just he's just got so much skill and talent. It's ridiculous. He makes I'll like post a video and I'll be like, yeah, this is pretty trailblazing. I mean, I don't see somebody one upping this one for at least maybe 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll come out with a video like the next week, and it's like either on the same level or beyond it. And it's like, what the hell is this kid doing? Where does he get this skill? So
Yeah, you're like, oh man, no.
little kids with their twitch muscles and crap learning. So
All right, so you told us earlier about the story with the briar patch and losing that drone. But besides that story, have you ever lost any other drones?
nope.
No?
Uh, so the whole existence of flying, I've never even broken a frame other than this one that got run over by a truck.
Wow.
So I mean, a lot of people assume that I'm like a sponsored pilot and I get all my stuff for free and I have no cares at all. And they would be as good as me if they got all their stuff for free because they just wouldn't care and they'd go out and just fly it and explode. And if they exploded, then they have like 10 more quads lined up because that's like the general consensus of a sponsored pilot or a sponsored skateboarder or a sponsored BMXer. They're like, who cares if you crash? Like, whatever, you got parts for days. It doesn't matter, especially in this industry because it all comes down to the aircraft going through the areas that you're trying to film. So if you crash the aircraft, it's no physical harm to you. So you just take it's money out of your pocket essentially and time out of your day to build the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
So now, with that being said, it takes me about 6 hours to build an aircraft from start to finish.
Wow.
And if I go out and crash that aircraft to the point where I need to repair it, and at the least, the minimum repair time would probably be an hour and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
average repair time is probably 2 hours. So you got to take that in consideration too. And also, GoPros are not cheap. So
No.
at like depending on what you do, if you're running a lens protector or if you're running something that can potentially save the GoPro from an accident, especially hitting concrete. I mean, if you hit concrete with anything, it's going to break. So yeah, I mean, do I get stuff for free? Yeah, but do I want to build it or repair it? No, never. I don't even like changing props. So my goal is to never crash. So that I never have to change props because it's annoying. I hate my little ratcheting tool that I
Mm-hmm.
use to take my props on and off. I do like trying new things, but the whole goal when I go out is to come back with just as many props as I left with and all of my batteries drained. That's the goal every day. So that might differ from what some people think my daily goals are. Going out and just getting epic footage, and that's all I care about. I don't care if I explode an aircraft or what, but I mean, you got to treat these things kind of like a child. If you abuse the crap out of it, it's not going to maintain its flight characteristics. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get worse. It'll get worse. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and then you end up having to just replace the whole thing because you don't know if the problem is coming from a motor. You don't know if the problem is coming from a speed controller. You don't know if it's coming from the flight controller. So all these little things that can cause problems are usually caused from hard crashes. So I try not to crash as much as possible. So I don't even remember what the question was, but
It was, have you ever lost another drone?
yeah. So
The answer is no, yeah. All right, cool. Flying Squirrel 6 asks, what is the cheapest you can get for a good quad? Like, what's the best quad you can get for a cheap price?
What is cheap?
That's
So
an excellent follow-up question.
that is a very good question. Now,
200 perhaps? Yeah. 300?
so I'll give you the breakdown of the price brackets you're looking at. So
Okay.
essentially, you have the price bracket under $100, which essentially gets you a toy. Now, a toy meaning it's not going to have any cameras on it. It's not going to have any first-person view. It's not going to have any kind of bells and whistles. It's essentially going to fly, and that's about it. And it's going to be maybe like that big, so the size of a small chocolate chip cookie. Um, and yeah, I mean, other than that, that's about it for under $100. And that would come with a radio. Like, there's the $40 market, which is like the little tiny radio that you can barely hold on to. You're like trying to get it like this. It's like a PlayStation controller that somebody let the Honey I Shrunk My Kids guy get a hold of. Then there is the next bracket, which would be like a Nano QX, which is like a blade. This is what is it? Horizon Hobby. They sell all kinds of like bind and fly planes and stuff like that. So there's that, which they have the Nano QX, which is a really fun aircraft. It's fun to fly. It's fun to learn on. They have an FPV version, but that bumps you up to $400 because you have the $200 goggles, you have the radio, you have the aircraft with a camera on it, the transmitter. So it becomes more and more expensive. So now there's a large gap between that $100 range of no camera, toy status stuff to a real, like, legitimate flying aircraft that could potentially be used, like, would have some power and have some durability. And that gap would be, honestly, probably about $400 to $500. So you're jumping almost 3 times the price, maybe 4 times the price to get something of quality. Now, yeah, you can go on Amazon and buy something for $200, but you're just going to end up throwing it away in a couple of days after you crash it once. To me, that is not acceptable because you're taking that $200 and essentially lighting it on fire as soon as you click the buy button.
Oh, wow.
So, and that happens all the time, and I see that. I get guys that email me or private message me on social media, and they're like, "Hey, man, I bought this aircraft. I spent about $300 on it, and I got it. I've been flying it for a couple of days, and I'm completely bored with it. Is there any way I can upgrade it?" And I'm like, well, that's like a dead end because there's literally nothing you can do. You would have to build a whole new aircraft onto that airframe because you can't upgrade motors. You can't upgrade speed controllers because the flight controller can't handle the speed controller upgrade and it can't handle the motor upgrade. So you're locking yourself into a dead end by spending about $200, $250. Then you have the next jump, which might be like $300. Like there's this thing called the E-Sheen, which is like a ready-to-fly FPV aircraft. And we actually bought some of these on Rotor Riot about a week ago, and we did a test with them to see what you can actually get for $300.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you open the box, it's very astounding at what you get for the price that you paid. You get all kinds of bells and whistles and toys, and it looks really cool, and it's nice and shiny. It's got headlights. It looks like a face when you turn it on. Now, with that being said, we took it out, flew it. I mean, it flew decently. I'm not going to lie that it didn't fly well, but I mean, I didn't crash it, but Chad crashed his from maybe 3 feet, doing about 5 miles an hour into some tall grass, and an arm completely exploded, and the speed controller was like filleted out like a sushi chef's, I don't know, my screen turned off. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're right.
But, yeah, I mean, it exploded out. There was solder everywhere. There was a motor wires all tangled, and that was from like
gosh.
a 5 mile an hour crash. So it was less durable than a piece of foam, like you can't see it, but I have a bunch of foam board next to me that you can snap with like your pinky finger. So yeah, very, very non-durable. And then Chad Capper, the flight test owner and Rotor Riot head, he's the guy that he crashed his into a tree at like maybe 10 miles an hour, and it exploded the arm. So, and the arms they're at $8 a piece. So you got to think, you got to buy the arm, you got to pay for the shipping, you got to wait for it to get there, you got to replace it. And if they break that easily, you're going to break them more than often. So you just continue putting money and time, money and time, money and time, and you're already spending $350, and that's a dead end platform. Again, like I said, you can upgrade stuff. You're dead ended there.
Yeah.
So But you spend about $500 and maybe $600. You get a nice radio. You can get it at like 9XR or something like that, which is just a pretty cheap Hobby King radio. Turnigy 9XR, I think. And then they're like $60. And you buy some good speed controllers for maybe $18 or $13 a piece. Motors are like $15 to $20 a piece. Flight controller, $30. The frame, you can buy a decent frame for about $50. So, but you have to build it. That's the problem. And then if you build it, you can really get into it cheap for about $500. But again, you don't have the camera, you don't have the FPV stuff. So the only real cheap, and like I said, what is cheap? The cheapest option I can think of, the cheapest and most like as far as cheap being affordable to where you're going to be able to use this thing for a long time and not explode it immediately,
Mm-hmm.
is the Immersion RC Vortex Pro, which is basically a ready-to-fly FPV racing quad that we'll actually be using these in the DR1 races. And I have one right behind me. I'll grab it and show you. But this one's kind of modified, and I know, Emily, you can't see it, but I think the people can see it. But you get this for $499, and I'm not even sponsored by these guys. I have no affiliation with them. I like the guy that runs the thing, and I like this aircraft and it's pretty durable. I mean, I just exploded it on the ground. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you can buy. It's ready to go. You can pull it out of the box. You buy a radio for about, I don't know, 60 to 80 bucks. And then if you want, you can buy a $200 radio that's going to blow your mind as far as the features it has. And then you buy a receiver for $30. You buy a decent set of goggles for about $300, and you buy batteries. And essentially, you're all up for less than $1,200, and you have a top-of-the-line, very comparable racing platform that you cannot break unless you like drop it out of the sky from 1,000 feet on concrete. And you're going to be able to build on it. Like, you can upgrade it. Like, I've upgraded these motors. So you can change all the colors on it. You can change the plastic pieces to have all different colors. You can mount a GoPro on it. You can mount a Mobius on it. You can mount whatever you want. You can run in different kind of props. You can run different size batteries. So you have a lot of options. But again, you have to spend a little bit of money to get something of quality. And that's kind of the lesson that I try to teach everybody, because everyone comes to you and they want your opinion, and you give them your opinion, and they don't like your opinion, and they go with their instinct, and then it sucks, and then they come back to you and complain. And it's like, I told you what you should have done in the beginning. If you like the hobby and you think you're going to stick to it, then go ahead and spend a little bit of money. It's not that much. You're not looking at like modifying a car, spending $800 on an exhaust, and then paying a guy $1,000 to install it, and then selling the car for $3,000 less than you bought it for a day later. So it's not an expensive hobby. You spend $1,500 and you get the top of the line everything, and you're going to be able to build on it. You spend $500 more and you get an aircraft. $500 more, you get an aircraft. So you've already invested the money in the goggles and the radio and the batteries. So all you have to buy now, if you break it, would be another aircraft. And like I said, it's a very cheap hobby. If I, even being quote unquote unemployed, as far as like a technical, some dude would say, "Oh, you don't work 9 to 5 for a freaking Fortune 500 company. You're unemployed." Yeah, I mean, it's not an expensive hobby. You can go out and buy foam planes if you want, and those are about $200, like ready to go, and you can have a blast. So, like I said, it's fun. It's cheap to an extent, and yeah. Sorry, that was a long-winded explanation for what the meaning of cheap is, but.
No, that was fantastic. It was a super in-depth answer, and I really think our chat loved to hear your point of view on it. Thank
There's
you
like
so much. Oh,
go ahead.
oh, you first. Sorry.
I was just saying, there's like 4 guys in the chat that are like, "I've already heard these answers. Screw this guy."
All right, Steele, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was wonderful to interview you. I've learned so much about drone racing now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you have any last comments or remarks you'd like to make, just any.
Come back, people. If you liked it, come back. Tell your friends. I think this will be happening again. Maybe I'll be on there, but essentially next time I'm not going to be able to speak because I talk too much.
Oh, you're fine. What is the next event you're going to be at? Where can people find you?
I actually leave tomorrow for an event called Joe Knoll, which is one of the largest RC events in the world. It
Wow.
happens in like just outside of Greenville, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and it's huge. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It's not multi-rotor only, but there is a large impact with drones this year. So there will be a racetrack set up. There will be a bunch of stuff set up. I'm not really going for the multi-rotor scene. I'm going because there's a lot of people that have traveled from all over the world to come to this because of just RC in general. I mean, there's RC cars, there's RC boats, there's RC planes, there's helicopters, there's all kinds of crap, and it goes on for an entire week. It started last Friday and it ends this Saturday. So it's huge. It's pretty cheap to go to. It's got showers. You can stay there. I mean, it's really fun. Chad actually flew down from Ohio. He was staying up in Ohio doing some Rotor Riot stuff for our store that has just opened. And now he is down here with me to go to Jonal because he saw my video from there last year and was like, if I ever get to a chance to come over to the United States, I want to go to Jonal with you. And yeah, that's what we're doing tomorrow. We're going for 3 days.
Awesome. Congrats. Well, I hope you have a great time. So, one last thing. What are your YouTube and Instagram names so people can find you?
So as far as like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, it's
Hmm.
Mr Steele FPV. So that's MrSteele FPV, as in first person view with no spaces or dots or anything. And then my YouTube account is just Mr Steele with no dot. And I'm the guy with I don't even know what my profile picture is anymore, but you should be able to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steele. It was great talking to you.
Thank you, Emily. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye, chat guys.